was something to see. Remember, about a year ago, after a vote in the House and the Senate of the United States voted to pass this thing called a comprehensive carbon tax or fee or something like that, and just a minute, I got to get under these seats, you know, in the House. When now all the representatives get out, it's a mess. I clean up after Congress here. Now, between you and me, I had my doubts. You see, there was all this rhetoric going on. You know, he said, she said, you do this, you don't do that. That partisanship stuff was going on. I had my doubts. But people got out there, and they learned what it meant to actually have a carbon price. They did their homework. And then, all these people, just like you and me, they met with their congressmen. This must be the senator from Oklahoma over here. Well, some fell to pessimism. But we kept meeting with the congressmen and the congresswomen. Now, I was just watching this, you see, because I'm just a janitor here in the Capitol. But there were a lot of good proposals before this thing hit the floor. And I think that kind of set the stage for everything. There's this group. They're called, Citizens Climate Lobby. And they've been they wanted a price on carbon. Now, they tell me carbon is everywhere. They said when I go, oh, that's carbon. Well, a year's gone by. And that first year was $15 for a ton of carbon dioxide. I don't know how they measure that, but just imagine that. They call this thing the American Carbon Fee and Dividend Act, and some people called it a Jobs Act, and I could see that. I can see that. Some people called it a transformation of America. Can you imagine such thing? There's one senator who said nothing like this had happened since the Industrial Revolution. I guess that's when they invented carbon and they started using it. Well, there are some groups that weren't very happy about this. Let me tell you, sweeping up these halls, you hear stuff that they don't think nobody hears. And there's these other lobby groups that come in. There was this guy from the oil industry. Well, the oil industry. No, never mind. I got thinking. I think this is a pretty good thing. You see, we got cleaner air, and there's actually more jobs. Oh, it's hard. There's people hemming and hawing and all that kind of stuff, but this clean energy thing I think is good. You betcha. Well, it passed after a pretty heated debate, I'll tell you one thing, but it passed. You see, I get to stand in the corner with the broom. It's like I'm invisible. Nobody sees the janitor. And the conservatives stepped up. Now, I know some of these guys, because they'll say, Jake, clean that up. Jake, clean this up. I wish they would have asked me to clean up the economy. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, the conservatives got together. They did their homework too. And these Citizens Climate Lobby people, man, they are like bulldogs on a lamb chop, I'm telling you. And they were really nice to these guys. And they taught them this stuff. And after a while, they listened. And whew, well, they passed it. The conservatives, that's the other side of the aisle for some of these folks, they sponsored the bill. What do you think about that? Well, I'm pretty proud to be in this country because of something like that. Well, I got to get back to work, so You just don't leave a mess when you leave.
Hi, I'm a farmer, a wind farmer. Oh yeah. Our biggest turbine right now is 8 megawatts. These baby's blades are 180 feet long. For me, it's a beautiful sight watching these things go around. And we're looking at 20 megawatt giants right now. In the past few years, we've put up thousands of wind turbines. There's a lot of upfront investment right now. I mean, 2 or 3 megawatt turbines can cost $2 to $4 million. But we got some bridging loans from the government, a few tax breaks, and the market has made wind cheaper than most other choices. So we're competitive right now. You gotta understand that when we decide to plant a wind farm, there's a lot of planning. We're really stepping it up right now. The great thing about the wind turbines, once they're up, they're running with no fuel required. And there's no emissions. So wind turbines are a no-brainer. But we do need wind.
Oh yeah.
It's a requirement. Some people don't like wind, especially offshore. But I ask you, you like smokestacks? You like brown air and asthma and sea level rise and the... But I go on. Gotta make choices. And it's time to go zero emissions. Some people don't like the space that the wind turbines take up. But we're planting crops underneath the ones that we install, getting double duty from the land. Farming wind, farming food in the same place. And we need a lot of those things. But if we're going to clean up our act, we gotta do this. And you know, I love this job.
I'm a grid engineer. I work on transmission lines and energy grids. Wow, have things changed since carbon fee and dividend passed 3 years ago. You ever see a map of our grid system? I'm talking about the power plants. You know, coal, natural gas, hydro, nuclear, wind and solar as well. And I'm talking about transmission lines. And I'm talking about the distribution network that conveys the electricity from the transmission lines through the substations to the step down to the transformers to the sub-transmission stations to the primary and secondary customers. That's you and that's me. They are the homes and the businesses, the schools and the factories. They are the end line. That's called the consumer use. In the biz, we call it the load. We have to upgrade this infrastructure, but we could not get any agreement or support out of Congress, let alone the power companies who were mostly focused on short-term profits. Then came a miracle and a curse. Why both? Because it was a price on carbon, and that was passed by Congress just 3 years ago now. This let the genie out of the bottle, so to say. It was like opening Pandora's box. It was the monster in your closet. At first, we were scared to death of it, but it turned out to be the right kind of monster. I've been in this industry for 40 years, and I've never seen such panic. You would think they'd prepare for this, but no. A lot of power providers were busy putting in natural gas lines instead of watching which way the wind was blowing. Get my drift? You have to understand that there are billions and billions of dollars in the grid, and that changing it is like trying to push over a brontosaurus. And I am purposely using the analogy of an extinct animal here. But in a way, it is an extinct animal. The old grid. This carbon fee set off the transformation of America. It leveled the energy source playing field so that renewables could fairly compete with carbon-based fuels. Well, punch me in the nose and call me Nancy. There was some serious scrambling to go. There was also a lot of help. We deregulated the power industry, and things called microgrids sprang up. You know, like for an industrial park or a small city or a large factory, that kind of scale. Well, these were installed over the last few years. That infrastructure connected to wind, solar, hydro, and geo-exchange and geothermal. And in the near future, we'll have some small modular nuclear reactors. They'll behave sort of like small battery systems for cities. We are finally moving in the right direction. But the two biggest problems we're still dealing with, can you guess what they are? Huh? Problem number one is raising the capital fast enough to keep pace with the necessary transformation. The switch over from carbon to the sun. Do you know what the second one is? Maybe it's the first as well. Maybe there are two first problems. Well, you guessed it. It's the mindset of America. But you gotta move forward. Got to shake off some of those old ways. And because it was happening so fast, well, necessity is the mother of invention. But we were all working faster than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. And after the first 2 years of hell, it all started to move in the right direction. And that's fast for this industry. Take a look behind me here. These are solar panels. There's whole fields of them coming up now. We are in this together, folks, and we're in it for the long haul. Welcome to the transformation.
It's been 1 year since Congress enacted the carbon fee and dividend, and what a year it has been. I've been able to see our society shift away from that throwaway society ever since everyone started realizing what's made out of oil. Plastic use has gone way down. People are bringing their own grocery bags to stores, buying Brita filters instead of water bottles. The water refill stations are popping up everywhere, and that bulk food section in your store is just booming now. It's almost as if we're actually catching up to the European countries that I've been thinking about for a long time. Many of my friends have known that I've been trying to reduce my waste consumption, and now I've become a source of knowledge and support to them. It's kind of great. My husband and I, when we went to Rhode Island's Water Fire Festival, we actually took the train because it was more cost-effective to do it instead of driving the two of us there. Unfortunately, there are some downsides to transforming our energy economy. My grandfather decided to finally retire from farming, and my uncle is desperately trying to keep it going. They've had a small farm in Ohio for 50 plus years now, and with the fuel prices, it's just not cost effective to farm anymore. Many of the other small farmers in my town that I grew up in are having the same issue. Everyone's looking at trying to bring solar on their land or wind farms, but not everyone's going to be able to get that. I worry about our food coming from more of the massive farms. Another challenge lies in the fact that we're a military family who moves wherever Uncle Sam sends us. We're usually hundreds of miles away from family and friends. Since the carbon fee and dividend, travel costs in general have increased dramatically. His daughter lives in Alabama, my husband's family lives in Tennessee, and my family's in Ohio. Family means the world to me, and this is one of the biggest challenges and the biggest drains upon us. I hope it'll get better with more and more clean energy and develop infrastructure for it. It just can't come soon enough for us.
You know, at night on the bridge, with all the navigational screens glowing green, the full moon lighting up the wave crest, you know how it makes the foam glow. It's a beautiful sight. I've been 40 years at sea. Captain for 14 of them. I can't sleep unless I hear that steady thrum of the engine. And the motion of the ocean is pretty good too. It's a comfort to me. Now these ships are big. They are massive. Tankers, almost half an hour it will take them to stop. Think of that. This is one of the ULCCs, the ultra large crude carriers. When I look out over that deck, I'm looking 1,500 feet to the bow. The beam, 200 feet. You could put 5 football fields out there. The underwater part of the ship, it's like a 6-story building. This is a big piece of engineering. We keep the world going. Well, we kind of did. Getting crude, oil, and liquid natural gas to all corners of civilization. Baker, keep an eye on those charts. There's those reefs around the Mauritius. We've got Saudi crude in the hold today on this voyage, and I'm going to throw some numbers your way. You see, with this new carbon fee and dividend bill in America, we're going to pay a big bill when we pull into port. They call this a border adjustment. Well, just so you know, I call it a tax. We are shipping about 4 million barrels of oil. And the price for a barrel of oil today is about 50 bucks. That means our cargo is worth $200 million. That's what we'll get for it at the point of sale. Now this ship is contracted out, and we get about $75,000 a day. And this voyage from Saudi Arabia around Cape Agulhas and up into Houston takes us about 50 days. So we'll get a check for $3.75 million to my boss, and I get a little bit of that. Now think of it. The U.S. uses just over 19 million barrels of oil every day. So this ship, this one ship, as big as it is, delivers 1/5 of the country's daily needs. It takes 5 of these monsters to equal 1 day of consumption in the United States of America. That's why we have been so busy for so long. So how does this carbon fee and dividend hit our profit margin? Pretty substantial. Now, I know that a gallon of gas is just over 6 pounds, and that it emits about 20 pounds of CO2 when you burn it. And that means for each dollar on a gallon of gas, it's just a couple pennies. But I'm hauling crude, and that's a whole different ballgame. The carbon fee and dividend bill is changing everything. Now, I'm going to throw a few more numbers at you, just so you can see why I'm looking at retirement in a couple of years. Oh, man. Baker, watch those charts. You want to get home alive? Throw you off the ship myself, I will. You see, our cargo of 4 million barrels of oil, that's going to make 1.7 million tons of carbon dioxide. I never thought of it that way before this bill passed. I was just doing my job. You know how it is, you go to work, you don't always realize the unintended consequences, huh? We're going to pay about $21 million in carbon fees just on this one load of oil. 21 million bucks. 11% of the cargo's value. Thing is, in 5 years, the carbon fee keeps climbing. It'll be up to 55 bucks for 4 million barrels of oil. We're going to be paying $77 million for each shipment. Now, I know where that money's going. It's going back to these households in America. And one of them is mine. So, looks like I'll be spending more time with the grandkids. I'll sail some. You know, this is going to be a very different world without everything running on oil. And I wonder if we as a human race can really quit that addiction. You know what I'm saying? Well, maybe my grandkids will have a better environment. Yeah, I suppose they will. Well, listen, I'll be in Houston in 25 days. Let's get a beer. I know a good bar.
With all the excitement surrounding this big change, what are you so worried about? Your job? You should be. The economy is in a state of flux, kind of all the time. It's a roller coaster of cycles, annual, 5-year, 10-year, and so on. I'm an economist. I worry about things like scarcity. I worry about goods and the resources necessary to produce them. So you can see where this is going in terms of carbon fee and dividend. Before the bill was passed, it was all about the carbon economy and fossil fuels. Renewable energy sources made up less than 10% of American energy. That's changing fast now. I'm also concerned about behaviors. I'm talking about the individual behaviors of you and me. You can't have an economy without people. What would be the point? No one to buy your goods. Another element relating to this is the behaviors between you and me, the producers, consumers, and government. Again, this is where the carbon fee and dividend bill really shook things up. The producers of fossil fuels were controlled for 100 years, and the government went along with it. But now, with a fee on carbon, the government has said, hey, there's a new sheriff in town. It's all about zero emissions. It's actually all about sustainability. This is a paradigm shift. It's a true economic transformation, there's no doubt about it. Now, when you ask economists, my tribe, about climate change, you find that 84% of us agree that it negatively impacts the economy. We also want a market-based solution. The carbon fee and dividend bill is driving that change. That means we're all for renewable energy sources. With this fee on carbon, we gain a lot more jobs than we lose. I'll bet you're wondering, how much carbon dioxide does your job make? As a consumer, I have a say in all this. You and I are the consumers. We dictate a large part of our economy. That's us. So, what do you want our economy to look like?
I couldn't get my head around the fact that I was a refugee. Me, born here in Kuhns, lived on the coast all my life, went to Boston College, came home, run a small business, insurance. This town is me. Think of this, discovered in 1614 and became a town in 1770. And there I was, bailing out my basement with every high tide, and some days not even able to get out my driveway. My granddad built that house, but seawater, wood rot, mold, and damage to the electrical, well, we couldn't sell it, and we couldn't live in it. A bunch of us fell to the rise of the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. Storm tides really did damage. We had waves breaking over our porch than the last hurricane. I woke up today, bang! I'm a refugee, living in a hotel just a mile from my own home. My husband, my kids, they're all depressed. We lost my family home, but I am a huge supporter of this bill, now 3 years old, that put a price on carbon. How could we have been so blind not to have done that 10 or 20 years ago? But the community has really jumped in. We got wicked good folk here. A bunch of us meet a few times a week at the Donkeys, and yeah, we gripe a bit, but also working it out. One of the guys says to me, he says, Diane, how ironic, you's in insurance and you's lost your home. Yes, sir. And I said, you too? And he said, so don't I. And then we ate the donkeys and we ate that sweet coffee. But I'm gonna stay here and rebuild on high ground and work with everyone to make sure we adapt. Well, none of us want to move to the hub.
Y'all from around here? I'm from Texas. My name's Dusty Rose. I'm a Rhodes Scholar. And I play all the Texas roadhouses. I saw you got one here in town. I can't figure that out at all. Well, I saw all that smoke from you carbon folk. Heard that carbon pricing is sweet like icing. So I wrote a little ditty for ya. I wandered this country from coast to coast. Some places are flooding, others hot as burnt toast. The planet is warming, this is the last call. If we can't get empowered, democracy falls. It's time to move forward. We cannot look back, stop that partisan bickering, ain't got time for that. We're part of this nature, keep using the sun. Some fuels are fossils, with them we are done. Stop removing these mountains, stop mining that coal. You're part of this picture, look deep in your soul. It's time to move forward, we cannot look back. Stop that partisan bickering, ain't got time for that. Put a price on your carbon. Put a price on your carbon. Every vote counts. Keep your eye on the ball. It's not just control, it's justice for all. The science is proven, the change it is fact. Call up your Congress, it's time that we act. Stop the oil wars now, just let the wind blow. What we plant today, our children will sow. Stop coughing and wheezing from that petroleum air. Stop fracking the planet, we'll end up nowhere. It's time to move forward, we cannot look back. Stop that partisan bickering, ain't got time for that. It's time to move forward, we cannot look back. Stop that partisan bickering, ain't got time for that. Put a price on your carbon. Put a price on your carbon. Put a price on your carbon. You got a price on your carbon.
Well, I'm a university president. Don't believe that? Check the feet. I've been a university president for a long time. I even remember some of the students. There was this one guy named Roger Kuhns, went off and did a lot of stuff, including working on carbon something or other. So we're a university, and we got everything here. We got especially the really important things like we got a school of business, and we got a stellar MBA program, the likes of which even some of them fancy pants places back east are jealous. Economics departments, we got economics, types, all types, macro, micro, pseudo, financial, commodities, sports betting. You name it, we got it, and we got lots of connections with Wall Street. The connections being our alumni who send us big checks. We get the cream of the crop students because we got such great programs. We build leaders. We build leaders that go out and make lots of money. We use terms like transformation, paradigm shift, global, all that stuff. Now you might detect a sense of sourness here. That's because I was not as smart as I should have been. When that carbon fee and dividend bill dropped, it was like a huge wake-up call. We felt like we'd been stung by a bunch of bees. I remember calling up the chair of the economics department and said, Sandy, what are we going to do about this? What's this going to do to us? It's important to us because we got a big endowment. Now, it's not as big as, say, Harvard at 36 billion, or Yale at 25 billion, or Princeton at 23 billion, or guess what it's invested in, or has been. Oh, you'll never guess. Now, our alumni, they send us a lot of money, and they send us a lot of advice. They know about investing. So they can tell us about these things and what we might do about it, especially with these big changes. They're out there making millions in the fossil fuel companies. Yeah, those are the ones that I was referring to. And if they're not making millions, how can they send us, millions? It's not good. And what are our graduates going to do? Where are they going to go and find jobs? I'm the president of this august institution, and I got to do something about it to keep this place running. I called the meeting, get all the experts we've got on board, bring them in, and they generated models, and they generated graphs, and they generated projections, and they had all kinds of things. We had seminars. Seminars, can you believe that? Seminars on carbon fee and dividend? Who would have a seminar? Well, we did, we had to. We invited speakers from all over. We invited speakers from the oil patch. We invited speakers from Wall Street. We invited speakers from the Senate. I don't know why we did that. We got them all together. We did our homework. We studied this to death. That's what we do. We're an academic institution. Now, you remember that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? I realized I was the old dog. I didn't just want to believe what I was seeing. I wanted to know something about it. And that was also true of my hotshot professors. And they had reputations to protect. They had research. They had papers. They had to know what should they be writing about. We didn't know what to do. And guess who solved the problem for us? Ha! You'll never believe this. It was the students. The students came in. They were rising up and saying, we got to do something. We got to get in line. We got to deal with this issue. Science students, math students, tech students, even some of the engineers. Well, of course, the ones who were really most fired up about doing something about the planet were the liberal arts and social science students. It kind of looked like the School of Business and the whole Board of Trustees was on the wrong side of this issue, and we didn't have much choice about what we were going to do, so the blood in the water was too tasty to ignore. Well, maybe tasty's not the right word. So we took a poll, and amazingly, 80% of the students said, no, you've got to get on board with this whole program. You can't just do business as usual. And then we looked at the poll from our alumni. 65% of our alumni said the same thing. What are we going to do? You know what alumni are for. Getting those checks. We can't ignore them. So the trustees had a meeting, and they voted. We're divesting, we divested, and we were worried about the consequences. What's going to happen to the donations? What are the Wall Street alums going to do? What happened was no gloom and doom happened. In fact, donations went up. Somehow we managed to do something that was actually in our own interest. Amazing! Our endowment increased. We had entered into this group of colleges and universities with huge endowments, and we were riding a wave of carbon dividend. I'm a college president. I'm a university president. We even started a new course, though. We figured we're going to make something else. We started a course called The Carbon Bubble. And we can't get enough professors to teach it. The student demand is enormous. It's through the roof. And why is that? Because the students know that it's their future. And the business school is even developing its own course, a new model. And the chairperson, my good friend Sandy, is calling it Stepping into a Sustainable Society. Amazing. We all look like heroes. Brilliant heroes. Remember that.
I didn't see this coming. I mean, I did, but I didn't think it would actually happen. But it's been a few years since Congress passed carbon fee and dividend, and the energy world is like, wow, I can't even. I started out a gamer, high scores in all the games, World of Warcraft, League of Legends, you know, all that. Don't judge. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Then I got into programming because games weren't challenging enough, you know. Humble brag. Then I saw this really cool real world thing, software for smart homes. I know, right? You know, you just walk in and say, turn on Iron Man, or it's cold in here, dial in my comfort zone. Well, I thought it was a niche market, but just a quirky thing. But with this carbon fee bill, well, everyone realized that if you save energy, then you save money. And that was a good thing. So my smart home app slays. I mean, I want basic, said no one ever. And the world was all ratchet. I mean, global warming, the struggle is real. Cancel that, right? You want to change the world? You gotta be thirsty. You need software, I'm just saying. See ya.
Those young kids, I don't know what they're saying. I had an epiphany on carbon pricing a while ago now. I've been doing resource geology since I was that high. When you study geology, you study global warming. You don't study it when it's a hot political issue. It's just part of the science. It's what we do. It was nothing astonishing, and it was nothing controversial. Everybody knew it was real. We see it all through geologic time, again and again and again. We just happen to be the first sentient creatures to actually say, I think global warming is a good idea. Let's burn up all that sequestered carbon. One of the things that came across our desk one day was this kind of amazing technical paper on peak oil. Well, that's when you get most of the oil that we knew about has been discovered, and we've burned half of it, and the other half that's left is a finite resource. Now, a finite resource is something that you are going to run out of pretty soon. Peak oil means that when you get on the other side of the curve, you can't run civilization the way we are running it today. Can't do it. Oh, there's still a lot of oil out there. It's just getting more and more expensive. So this carbon fee thing that I heard about, that was a pretty good idea. My epiphany came when I started really understanding what an ecological footprint was. Now, when you put your foot down on the earth, you leave an impression, whether you like it or not. And we live in a pretty good country. As we look at how our economy is changing, in the past 3 years since this bill passed, people have really woken up to what an ecological footprint is. You see, in America, the average American eats what's equivalent to 5.6 Earths. Now, what does that mean, 5.6 Earths? How can we eat 5.6 Earths? Well, you get 1 Earth, then you get 4.5 more. So, the company sent me over to Africa for a while. I was there for about 8-10 years. And I got to see how many Earths some of those people were eating. And it was a lot less than 1. And I came home and I realized when I eat more than 1 Earth, I'm eating one of their Earths. There are billions of people in the world in that situation. I love my country, and I want us to be leaders. And I cried when that bill passed, because we became leaders of the world on the right side of the fence. If you think that the earth can't take what humans throw at it, think twice. We don't do this for nature. We do this for us. And what I mean by that is, Mother Nature has seen a lot worse than humans can throw at it. If you have any doubt, just ask the dinosaurs. How many of them are around, except the avian ones? We understand in the geologic context, in the ecologic context, what it means to change the atmosphere and ecosystems of a planet. And we're the first sentient species to do that. So much so that in geology we renamed a whole period called the Anthropocene. The first time a species knowingly changed this planet. Carbon fee and dividend passed, and we're going to try to change the planet again. We have to balance our consumer practices. We got to not be super consumers. See, it's not just about policy. You can't just pass a policy and then everything is fine. You have to embrace that policy, and you have to think and look deep into your soul and say, with everything you buy, with everything you throw away, is this good for our civilization and our planet? So what's going to come out of this carbon fee and dividend? Oh, there's a bunch more bills coming through Congress now, dealing with transportation, they're dealing with microgrids, they're dealing with all the other things that will help us balance our society to a sustainable society. This is like the best thing ever. And as a geologist, I know that in 1,000,000 years, when those geologists are digging into the ground and they find the strata where we live, and they find our bones, and they'll say, well, the ones down here, they got a distinct carbon signature, but the ones up here, they were dancing.
Every day, work, and I see the future of the world filling these halls of this high school. I look into the eyes of these students and I see possibilities, I see hope, I see potential, but I also see confusion, fear, and uncertainty. High schools are on the front lines for our future. These young people are not kids. They're young adults, and they are learning to stand up for their concerns and issues. They are the future voters. So what concerns do they have? Mental health issues. This includes anxiety, and that anxiety comes from a lot of places. A common place is bad behavior of adults. And I'm speaking about our politicians. This leads to stress. These young people see this, they won't take it anymore. They hate bullying. They see bullying behavior of certain lobby groups and corporations. Many of those lobby groups and corporations operate from a position of fear and of force. We learned of Citizens Climate Lobby and how they operate from a place of empowering people. That really resonates with my students. They felt included and not diminished. A huge trigger for my students is inequity. They see it in gender issues, in ethical behavior, in race issues, immigration, inequality issues, and so on. Sometimes the student becomes so distressed it might lead to suicide. Another huge ethical issue for students is how adults treat our planet. You probably have heard of our Children's Trust and how 20 young people sued the government for denying them their constitutional rights to life, liberty, and land. These young people are doing amazing things. Our Children's Trust lawsuit is based on the fact that the government knew about global warming for decades and they suppressed it. They knew that fossil fuel companies were contributing to this and they suppressed it. Well, a few years ago, just before carbon fee and dividend legislation became law, those young 20 plaintiffs won their case in the Supreme Court. Their remedy is a climate recovery plan. This shapes the way we address climate change in this nation until it is no longer threatening. This was historic, it was monumental. This Supreme Court decision caused a paradigm shift and was needed catalyst to push Congress over the edge and pass the carbon fee and dividend. You see, almost all of us have kids, and these young people are our future. Owe it to them to give it our best. That means high ethics and responsible democratic behavior. And one final thing about passing the carbon fee and dividend. It proves to the young people of America, even the world, that we care, that we listen, that we are all in this for their future, not just the short term. As I look back over the last 3 years since it became law, I see one of the biggest impacts is how young people see the world today. They're smiling. They have a future, and they know it.
Here we are. The 3 years since that carbon bill passed. Look, I love what I do. Did I? Did I love it? I did.
I know.
I don't know a lot about politics, but I do know I gotta work. The government told us while we could mine coal, when we could mine coal, and what kind of power we're gonna have. And horse feathers. You can't blame coal when you got all these fancy cars on the road. I won't care how many jobs they killed. I care about my job and my son's job, and I don't say that, Dad. not anymore, not for a long while now. We always been all about coal here. Yeah, but I think the coal days were numbered before this carbon pricing bill. That's what I'm saying. Automation and that cheap natural gas and air pollution stuff, you know. Writing was on the wall. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Right. You voted for the other side. And certainly you never thought we'd see this kind of day. I mean, no jobs in Boone County and Logan and Mingo neither. I'm 34. At least I started retraining. I'm doing this solar thing installation stuff up at the Tech. My pension's gone, and I ain't got nary none. I got some of that black lung, worse than smoking backer. Yeah. Healthcare's a mess, and I'm 62 years old. They killed my job, and I can't get another job. Nowhere to go but down, maybe. Unless you can figure out a way we can go up. You know, one thing I learned is, and it really shocked me, was that there are over 5,000 people dying from illnesses related to burning coal in our environment every year. That's bad pollution. That's CO2. That's just global warming, Pa. It was supposed to be clean. There just ain't no such thing as clean coal. I think we've always known that. I mean, that stack cleaner pulls out a lot of stuff, but not the carbon. And just blow your nose once we've been down in the dungeon there. Boy, that's a nasty stuff. Gross. And there's all these heavy metals. It's poisonous. Well, there's your healthcare plan. Just don't breathe the air. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of my point. Kind of your point. You burn a ton of coal. That's carbon. It goes into the air and combines with oxygen. Yeah, that's plumb makes twice as much. That's 2 tons. That's what the book from the EPA said anyways. I read that. That means twice as much of the CO2 is in the air. It shouldn't be there. That means the fee on the coal is twice what we can sell it for. You've been learned. Who would have thought it? I still think the government and the companies there, they owe us. Well, we got some of that redevelopment money from the government coming into the county now. It's been happening all over Appalachia. I mean, I'm starting to find work. I gotta tell you, it's better than being 900 feet underground in the darkness for all 10 hours a day. I get to see the sun. And you know, we should be mining the sun, not coal 900 feet underground. Well. And we shouldn't be taking the tops of mountains off. Hey, I'll give you that. Really, never really wanted you down there anyway. I mean, with all the rock falls and the exploding gases and fire and the black lung right here. Oh boy, you know, I gotta tell you, it's done been nasty to a lot of men down there. I'm glad you're out. Times change. Yeah, I studied this. Smart for me. Pretty smart. Just saying. I can learn more skills. Hey, they even put solar panels on the coal museum over in Benham. They said it was a low-cost solution to energy. What are we doing for dinner? You got that worked out yet? Wanna go down to Carson's? Yeah. Not stingy on the meatball pepperoni rolls. Yeah. Alrighty then. Alright. Let's do it then.
I remember back in 2018 when U.S. Steel restarted the Granite City steel plant here in Illinois. There were 500 of us who came back to work, even though only one of the 2 blast furnaces was restarted. The plant had been idle for over 2 years, but it reopened after the president put tariffs on overseas steel. Everyone around here saw that as pretty good, especially those of us who got our jobs back. Now, I know that the CEO of U.S. Steel said that America's national security is only as strong as American steel. We pretty much all agree with that here. I mean, we make everything that goes into everything. Hot roll, cold roll, galvanized, galvannealed products, cars and trucks, farming equipment, pipelines, electrical, appliances, packaging, structural, you name it. We get 25 million tons of taconite iron ore pellets out of Minnesota every year. That's up there in the Mesabi Iron Range. We get another 22 million tons out of the upper Michigan Peninsula. That's the raw material iron. I expect they were pretty happy too. Making steel, though, is friggin' hard work. My dad worked in this plant. Me and my brother work here now. When the carbon fee and dividend bill passed Congress 3 years ago, we all thought, it's over, it's gonna kill us. So you gotta understand for a minute how steel is made. First you need iron ore, we get that from the taconite I mentioned. Then you need limestone and coke. These 3 things are combined and refined in the blast furnace. Then the molten iron is moved to the basic oxygen process shop, where we mix it with steel scrap and we add other metals to make specific alloys. All this is refined into steel, cast continuously as large slabs. You've probably seen the glowing slabs they show you when you see the videos of steel mills on the news market. Sounds really complicated. I guess it is when you think about what we've done with iron from the ground. Now think for a minute about how we use coal. Coal is the main source of fuel for the blast furnace. The coal is converted to lump coke in a coking oven before you put it in the furnace with iron and limestone. About half of it, half the coke, that's the coking coal, which is basically carbon, combines with the oxygen from the iron ore to make carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide is sent up the stack into the atmosphere. We use about 500 tons of coal for every 1,000 tons of iron ore to do this for coal. Well, in the carbon fee and dividends bill's first year, a ton of coal had to pay $15 a ton. That came out to $42.90. That's about 40 bucks on every ton of coal. That's for each ton. Coking coal goes for $80 a ton, but Appalachia coal at the mine site goes for about $60. And what you pay for the carbon fee is about half to 2/3 of the value of a ton of coal. That's in the first year. That put coal out of business real quick. The president set an exemption for coking coal for a while to keep steel in business, but the writing's on the wall. So we are converting to direct reduced iron, called DRI, using electricity and natural gas. But the carbon fee also applies to natural gas. Natural gas emits about half as much in terms of emissions compared to coal, so that'll work for a while, but not very long. How should the steel industry respond to carbon fee and dividend? Pretty obvious to me. We've got to figure out how to make steel without using fossil fuels. But we need time for that. I just want you all to know here that if that's not considered, we have over 380,000 jobs at risk. That's a lot of jobs, and one of them's mine.
In the grave, 1 foot on the gas, driving my big Hummer, babe, drinking while it lasts. I know I'm kinda basic, but baby needs your crude, like fish need their water, kids need their fast food. Oh, I'm a soldier of fortune, I get what I deserve. Oh, I'm just another conscript in the petroleum reserves. Out of Texas, drain that salt dome too. I'll pump it from the Saudi sands if you really want me to. I'm a consumer of the world, babe, an economic whiz, a fossil fuel dream team, premium gas biz. I'm a soldier of fortune, I get what I deserve. I'm just another conscript in the petroleum reserves. Of electric cars run on electricity. How How can this be a good thing? They don't burn my gasoline. Oh, there's nothing quite so magical as cruising Sunset Strip with your baby in your Beamer and a gas can on your hip. Oh, I'm a soldier of fortune. I get what I deserve. Oh, I'm just another conscript in the petroleum reserves.
Hey everybody, I'm turning into a plant. I'm trying to turn into a plant so I can breathe carbon dioxide and continue to use fossil fuel, which is made on a plant, so it's kind of like cannibalization of Mother Earth. Oh yeah.
My MPG is criminal, 10 miles to the gallon. It's my right to drain my tank, so don't you start your yelling. Oh, I picked up a gal in LA town. She cursed my SUV. I said it's best to hitchhike a ride. You get your gas for free. Oh, I'm a soldier of fortune. I get what I deserve. I'm just another conscript in the petroleum reserves. Yeah, yeah, I'm a soldier of fortune in the Arctic Reserve. Got my pump jack ready for those petroleum reserves.
Thank you very much. We'll have to do another set. We ran out of gas.
I'm a marine biologist. Fossil fuels have been catastrophic to the oceans. Acidification, the oceans are as acidic as they were 35 million years ago, when the Earth had a lot of volcanism. And now, of course, we're in the middle of rapid global warming, species extinction, sea level rise, and more toxins. And one of the biggest problems? Plastics. It's not just the carbon dioxide, it's the plastics. We make plastics from petroleum, and the ocean is awash with these polymers. Think of it. Since plastic became the thing in the 1950s, we've produced over 8 billion tons of it. Only 9% of that was recycled. A lot ended up in the oceans, and the sun and salt break it down into smaller and smaller pieces. The plastic absorbs toxins. Fish and birds eat the plastic. They sit in the guts of fish and birds, and they starve to death. The environmental and social costs are nearly $140 billion every year. So this fee on carbon is a lifesaver for the planet in more ways than addressing climate change. Plastic is more expensive now. More recycling is happening. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew. Think we have a chance?
Hey! Still a mess in Congress. If you thought one bill was going to clean everything up. I'll tell you, I ain't never seen so many young people in Congress in my life. They're way more fun. They got senses of humor. And they have a certain amount of awe about what we are. Oof. And they don't litter as much. You know, I don't have to clean up as much after these guys. I think you guys did something that just changed a bunch of minds. Oh, hi, Senator. Yeah, what? You want me to read this? Well, I want to thank Darcy Glenn for being a wind farmer. I want to thank Julia Minshew for being a young woman with parents on a farm. And I want to thank Tom Big DePayton for being a market economist and a steel worker. Andy Hanna, climate refugee. Gotta get some of that donkey. Kyla Donnelly, the millennial software engineer. And Jody Schoenfeld, a marine biologist. One more thing. Senator Iona wants to say something.
Thanks, Roger. That was amazing, and all you guys were incredible.
What is a man made of? What measure do we use? Is it about family or money, or how he fills his shoes? Let's not talk politics, 'cause they don't get the hint. But I bet the real thing is your carbon footprint. We all go through life exhaling 10 times a minute, consuming everything we can like we're in it to win it. As we burn up dinosaurs, use metal and water too. We turn force into countertops until this earth is through. Oh, you're just another one on the carbon highway. Emit your CO2 until you're through. It's just a climate thing anyway. So you want to sequester, but you just can't hold your breath. You'll find you're gaining weight. Greenhouse gas can be a mess. But the oceans are rising, so you better hurry up. The atmosphere is getting full, and we're drinking from an empty